guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Yvonne from GingerChickRehab. I am so glad to have you back checking out what Chris and I are up to. So in today's video, no, this is not your everyday mirror makeover. I'm actually adding a couple new techniques in there, stepping outside my comfort zone, and I'm sharing with you the process. So if you are a reseller or if you have a mirror that you've tucked away because you were tired of it, or you're just looking at your wall going, oh, I really would like to give it a facelift, this is the video for you. This standing mirror, I haven't run across a standing mirror that wasn't 35 bucks. This one was 20. It's got some peeling, but it's still a beautiful, I know that I can make this a little bit better. I know I shared that mirror with you a few weeks ago, but I was really trying to come up with the idea to make it not be so plain, but this is a heavy, and then the hardware on the back. So it is a pressed MDF type board that has some paper over it. Now the front is perfectly fine, but the back has gotten some peeling on it. So I'm kind of trying to think of how I'm going to fix this. But first thought, I was like, okay, well, I can glue it, but that's a lot of glue, and I don't really want to sand after I've glued it because I'll probably go underneath the paper. So if I'm going to end up sanding it anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and peel all the loose off and then sand down whatever I can, trying to get it as smooth without trying to go through any more of the paper. But before sanding it, I'm going to go ahead and see how I can take this back off. Yep, it has a unique kind of hinged area to keep this standing and support the weight. It is a beast. This thing is heavy. So this is my idea. I'm going to add some of these wooden appliques that I got off of Amazon. Now I ordered a couple different ones. This was a set that all came together. So just trying to think of my placement, how I would like to do them. So I love the larger ones. I'm deciding against that. It's just that's too much going on with the smaller ones, so we will save those for a different project. But I absolutely love those larger ones. It'll just give it a little bit more visual interest. So now to glue them on, I'm just going to be using some Titebond, the Quick and Tight. This is the I dry quickly one because I'm a very impatient soul. And so all I did was go ahead and just squirt some of it on. Now I have a glue applicator that will just spread it around, or, you know, if you're like me, sometimes you're too lazy to get the applicator and you just use your finger. But yeah, so I'm trying to spread it around. I really want to make sure that this isn't going to lift anywhere and getting all the spots filled up with glue. And the biggest thing is, as you see, I have my measuring tape down there. I'm trying to make sure that I have it centered. It just fits, you all. It just fits on this piece of wood. I really can't say that I took the measurements, particularly when I ordered these off of Amazon, so I was glad that they fit. Now, it's funny, if Chris was doing this, Chris would tell me I would have to clamp this, but this is a beast of a mirror. It's heavy, it's awkward. I want to glue all four down at the same time, so I'm just going to use my 2-inch masking tape, and I'm just going to pull it nice and tight. So I'm going to do 5 strips, just on all the surface area, making sure that it is pushed down, that there's no lifting, and that it will, as it's drying, be glued completely down. Now I let them sit overnight to completely dry, so now, did I do a good job? So let's get that tape removed. You know, it is nice and stuck. They're nice and firm. Nothing lifted. The tape worked out just fine. Still have a little bit more prep that I need to do to these before painting. Now, these are wood appliques, so they're very porous. And then, as I said, this is a press board with a paper over it. So I'm going to go ahead and spray a couple coats of shellac. So what that's going to do is going to even out the porosity of the wood, but then it's also going to give my paint something to grab onto on that paper that's over that pressed board. So I could not sand this perfect. The more you sanded it, the more it would go into the paper. So I just did the best that I could. So my idea for the back pieces is just to spray them black. So that will hide the difference between the paper and the wood. I sprayed these with shellac to even out that porosity also. So I think it'll be do a really good job of covering it up. Then after my black paint is dry, I'm going to seal it in with a good coat of Polycrylic. This is going to be the finish coat on the back. So now I'm going to step outside my box and actually apply a color. Okay, so it's a gold color. So, yep, I did the black paint to even out the color underneath. And now I'm going to do this gold metallic. Now, I love the Rust-Oleum's mirror effect, so that's why I picked out this gold paint. And I knew that it may be a little bit of bright, but I know that the brass mirrors have been in. When I have thrifted them and resold them, they don't stay in the booth very long, so I'm trying to see if I can reproduce that type of look on this big standing mirror. Yeah, I just envisioned it was such a unique find that I just wanted to make sure that it stood out just a little bit. So when you're using this spray paint, just like that mirror effect, it is really smelly. I do have my mask on, my fans going, my ventilation system on, but with any paint that you're spraying, you should protect your lungs. I did assume that this was going to be a little bit on the bright side, but I have the rub and buff. Now, I just recently did a mirror where the two-toned of the gold was going on, and as soon as I did the rub and buff, I put it in the booth. It sold that same day. So that's what I'm going for. I'm like, okay, so people are liking this look, but this is a lot of mirror to have to do. I do understand that. So luckily I should have enough in these tubes to do. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just playing with the two different colors that I think it's the gold leaf and the antique gold to help tone this down. So not only will I do the applique, but I'll also go in and do the rest of the frame of the mirror also. So all I'm doing is mixing the two together, wiping it on, and then I have a cloth to, as it says, buff it off and making sure that it's on there nice and even. So next, I actually ran across this. I have not found one of these oval standing mirrors in a long time. And as I said previously, that wasn't $35. So stumbled across this on a community-wide garage sale for $15. Oh, I was so happy. So the only thing the guy said, he's like, oh, well, this piece is broken off. That's why we're selling it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we can fix that. Now this mirror, unlike the other one, was able to be easily removed, so I don't have to work around the mirror on this piece. For whatever reason, this screw head it's stripped, so it's not staying tight, so as soon as you touch it, it falls off. So the fix is, since it's metal, is some JB Weld. So JB Weld is like a 2-part epoxy for metals. So I'm just going to mix just a little dab here of the two, each of the two, mix them together, and then just put a little bit on the screw, and then put that top on there, and then just let it sit and cure, and we should be good to go. Type of mirror always reminds me of like the cottage core, French cottage kind of look. So it's in wonderful shape other than that broken screw. So all I'm going to do is go ahead and scuff sand the entire piece to give my paint something to grab onto. Now that I have it painted all white, I'm going to seal that white paint in with some polycrylic. My polycrylic is dry. I did do both sides of this frame. I'm just going in and giving it a light sanding around the edges. I want to give it a little bit of distressing to pop some of the details. So not heavily distress it by any means, but just a little bit to give it that aged, worn look. I'm going to go back in with some very thin clear wax. Since I distressed it, I want to make sure that I've got everything nice and smooth, that everything is sealed in. And before putting this back together, I want to give the mirror a nice, good cleaning. It's always funny once you remove a mirror. It has always some kind of a rim all the way around it. So it's just nice to give it a fresh start again. So my other Norwex cloth is actually, my Enviro cloth is being cleaned. So I'm just using a wet wipe and then the dry Enviro cloth. And that seems to work out just fine. There's just something about that glass cloth that just leaves your glass just clean and streak free. Next up, I have these 3 mirrors. So as a reseller and having pegboard space, wall space in our booth, I like to have wall decor, which is usually windows or thrifted pictures or something like that. But one thing that really does sell is mirrors, but I'm always got a look that I'm looking for, beveled glass, detailed, or something I can put a transfer on or some vinyl. So can't say that sometimes you find a lot, sometimes you don't find very many, and that's been one of the seasons so far. But I absolutely love pieces like this one that I'm cleaning with some crud cutter right now that have those detailed pieces. So we're going to get this one all spray painted up black and give it a new look. My black paint is dry. I'm going to go ahead and seal it in with some polycrylic. So I know this kind of already had the look before, but it was an outdated look. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that same rub and buff, but on this one I have the gold leaf and then I have a silver. So I have really good luck just dry brushing these rub and buffs on the detailed areas, combining the gold and the silver together over the top of one another, and it just transforms it into a little bit more updated look. And then it opens it up. It's not gold, it's not silver. You can blend it in two different areas, and I have, as I said, I have really good luck blending the two together in the resale. Now for my next two, I'm going to get these cleaned off and they're going to get a fresh coat of black. So the black is not only to cover up and start off fresh and be an undercoat of color, it also has a primer in it. Okay, so how many of you knew I was going to do the crackle with the glue on these? Yes, it's doing really well on the reselling, as I'm sharing with you all, or it's just a nice classic aged look. And I achieved it, and it's simple to do. So after that polycrylic is dried, I'm just putting on some Dollar Tree glue, whatever glue you have on hand, I guess. And then after I get it applied, I'll just take a paintbrush and spread it out. Longer you let your glue dry, I find the bigger the crackles are. So on the smaller piece, I want little crackles because it isn't a very big surface area. So I painted it right over that quickly. And now on this next piece, I would have sprayed it. You can spray it or brush it out. I didn't want to fill my sprayer back up because this is the last two pieces that I'm using my white spray on. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll brush it on. So when it comes to brushing it on, I let this dry just a wee bit more than I did the other side, just so you're not picking up that paint and picking up the glue and the paint together. So it's a lot of paint on your brush, so it's just kind of one coat coverage. That's also a reason I like it. So I'm just going ahead and adding the paint right over that glue. Because it's a heavy coat of paint, you really want to have an area where you're okay with the paint dripping off. And as it starts to dry, as you see, it starts to make all those beautiful crackles. So this is the one that I wanted. I painted immediately after because I wanted smaller crackles for this smaller frame. And then on the other one, I waited a little bit. As you can see, it's starting to have bigger crackles. So I do notice the difference in like glue dry time before adding the paint. But same thing, it's a lot of paint on there, so it does drip off, but it makes those beautiful crackles. And now that it is dry, I'm going to go back in and I want to pop a little bit more of the details. It's got some sharp edges here and it has the detailed around. I just want to give it a little bit more worn and aged look just with some sandpaper, some 100 sandpaper to bring it down to just see how it's just grabbing some of those bumps more than it crackled. Sometimes the crackle is just perfect as is, or sometimes you can help it along by distressing it with some sandpaper. To anything that hangs, I always like to add a new hanging system or check out what hanging system is there. And I would not trust these hammer-in hanging systems with a heavy mirror for anything. I cannot believe this is how they thought this mirror should hang. This is heavy, not only the frame, but the glass of the mirror. So I use a couple eyelet hooks that I get off Amazon, some 17 gauge wire, and I give it two ways. So whichever way the buyer would like it to be, it sells better when you give them a little bit of different options. And then depending on how much of a drippy mess, I always go through with some sandpaper or my power sanders and get off that hard crusty edge where that paint has now dried. It just, especially when you go to feel it, you could feel that paint build up, and I like my back sides to look as nice as my front sides. So I knew when I picked up this kind of a boring, not very fancy, no beveled glass, no detail on the frame until now, but I knew that I wanted to add a little something to the mirror, and I have the other half of the barn transfer that I'm going to be putting on this. I'm just going to go ahead and center it, lay some piece of masking tape so I know when I remove that backing and start sliding off the transfer that I am still centered. Unstick it from the backing, but I still keep that backing just showing just a little bit of a tip of the transfer, because once you've stuck it, especially on glass, it is there. So this is pretty easy once you get it centered and you just start off. So all I'm doing now is just going to start rubbing the transfer onto the glass. It comes with a stick. So yep, you just start rubbing, you kind of see it turn from that black to a gray, and you know that it is being transferred onto the glass, and then just gingerly, carefully pulling up that outer protection, and you can tell it kind of, as you're pulling, you can see that you need to rub down. It makes it a little bit faster if you lift that top piece up and then just work your way from one side over to the other side. And yeah, it's pretty fast once you get a rhythm going of rubbing, but it is a little bit of a workout. Seal my transfer in a glass, I just use some more of that Varathane clear wax, and I know that kind of makes a ucky mess on the glass part itself, but right now I'm worried about sealing that transfer in, but then I'll go back in with those same Norwex cloths and wipe off that mirror. It seems to work out just fine. Okay, so what did you think? Have I inspired you to look at secondhand mirrors in a new way, or even the ones you have laying around your own house? Oh my goodness, yes. Adding appliques without having to make a mold of resin or clay or any of that. I did not want to have to do with that. I wanted to make this simple and cost efficient. So I love those appliques, and that gold. I knew it was going to be a little spicy at first, but I knew I was going to be able to tone it down with some rub and buff. And then the classic white of that Cottage core round oval one is always a good seller if I can get my hands on that one for under a certain price. And then, yes, just the simplicity of painting a fresh mirror black that has details, more rub and buff. Man, I just am in love with that rub and buff and how well it can transform a piece. So adding the gold and the silver together has always sold really well for me. So I'm definitely looking for those types, along with the beveled mirrors. You know, the beveled mirrors just upgraded a little bit, but sometimes you run across one like the crackle ones I did. Yes, there was one crackle and it was beveled and it was good. And then the other one, I'm like, that's just a nice size mirror, isn't good, but the frame, yeah, you know, I can crackle it. But being able to put a transfer on it using the other half of that barn transfer, oh, yes, I've actually done that one before and it's always sold. So yeah, I'm a creature of habit. How about you? I like to make money, so I don't want something just collecting dust in my booth. I'd like to sell it. So again, I hope I have inspired you in any way, and as always, give me a comment of which one was your favorite. Do you have any of these ideas that you want to try? Give me a comment down below. And as always, if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. Your kind compliments, your comments, you're always sharing with me your stories. I read each and every one of them and try to comment back something. So anyway, thanks for watching today's video, guys. And if you are new and you're checking out this content for the first time and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know we've uploaded a new video. And we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye.